Hello, good morning friends. Today we are going to learn about the theories of origin of state, and you can subscribe to the channel, then you will not miss any coming classes, and it's absolutely free. So today we are going to learn about the first theory, and this theory is of divine right. Divine origin of state, it's the same name for this theory, divine origin or divine right. So this theory is one of the earliest theory given of how the state came into existence. So in the first class, in the earlier previous classes, we have learned what state actually is, and then we learned the distinction between state and other various institutions. And today we are going to learn how state actually came into effect. So the first theory is the very oldest one. This is probably the oldest theory, and you have to actually feel this theory. This is basically when man does not find answer to anything, it tries to relate it to God. So in modern day, think if you are in a room and every window is closed and there is no fan running and then the curtain is moving. Chances are that you will either associate it with an act of God or an act of demon, good and bad things. In the same way, earlier when humans were finding it difficult to find some good answers, some reasonable answers, they used to connect things with God. Like earlier when humans, right now we know the sun is a star, but there was time when humans were not aware of this fact. So in that case, humans used to associate sun as a god. It is a god of sun. This is something that this red ball come in the morning, rises, it sets in the evening. So they associated it with the sun god. So this theory is something like that. When humans were not aware of much ideas or what suitable answers, they tried to connect it with God, and then this theory originated. You will also understand multiple facets of political science, how politics actually work, and you will understand this theory is not only the theory of origin, but it also tries to play a role that how religious matters can dominate in the sphere of politics. So the first thing that we are going to learn about this theory is how this theory came into existence, the development of this theory. So when I was mentioning about God and religion, I think it was pretty much clear that the various religious texts support this theory. This theory believes it is given in the religious text of Christianity. As you know, the Christianity is the biggest religion of the world. It's also given into other scriptures like the scriptures of Hinduism and Islam and other like Jewish religion. So various religious texts try to propound this theory. This theory believes that king is not appointed by man. King is a special person. He is not like other common humans. So king is appointed by the god, and only God can remove the king. You see what this theory is trying to do? This theory is saying that the king is appointed by the god. It's not the humans who are appointing him, and since the humans are not appointing him, only God has the right to remove the king. This is indirectly telling the people not to ever rebel against the king. And the king is not responsible to the people. He is only responsible to the king. He is only going to answer to the king. People are going to answer to the king, and the king is going to answer to the god. Actually, the real thing here should be God. So yes, the king is appointed by the god, and it is only answerable to the god. Now the second point in this theory is how this theory was more and more made populated. The theory was popularized by the various theorists, various political thinkers of Greece and Rome. So in old times, in today when we say the Western political thought or how the Western ideologies dominated, that time when we said Greece and Rome, it was associated with West, because these were the two city states, those the confederation of states that were dominating most of the political thinkings. So many of the theories given by the Greek and the Roman political thinkers also popularized this theory. In the religious age, in the Middle Age, first there was a time when the society was dominated by reason. Then in the Middle times, there was not much reason. People were trying to dominate and trying to explain things in religious ways. And it is also known as the religious age, the Middle times. So they tried to associate religion with politics, that God is actually shadow. God is shadowing the earth in way of the king. The king is actually the shadow of the god. Now moving to the third point, divine rights of the king. This is pretty much the summary of this theory, how it actually works. It says that the king is appointed by the god. It's not appointed by humans. Second thing, hereditary. So every child or the offspring of the king is going to become the king next. Okay, it's a hereditary. It goes in the family. The son of the king is going to become the next king. Accountable to God only. The king will not answer to the humans. He will only answer to the God, because he's only accountable and answerable to God. So humans are not there. The people are not there to ask him anything. He has no responsibility toward the people. The real responsibility that the king has is towards the God. The next point is very important and shows the real core of this theory. It says that violating the king is violating the god. If the king issues an order and people try to disobey that order, they're not only disobeying the king, they're actually disobeying the god, because the king is associated with the god, because the king is appointed by the god. And if somebody disobeys the rights, disobeys the orders of the king, then in reality is committing a sin by violating the god. This is completely associating king with divinity. You might have seen many pictures of earlier gods in which there was a halo around their neck, behind their neck, this kind of round thing. So they were trying to show the divinity in the god, in the king, and every work that is done by the king is actually a work of God. Next point is the king is above the law. There were laws earlier too, and actually whatever the king said became the law. But in this theory, it says that whatever the king says is law, but the king himself is above the law. There is no law that will be applied to the king. He is completely free to do whatever he likes to do. The next thing is, even if the king is cruel, if he is a cruel king, he initiates some kind of policies that are not very good for the people or the welfare of the people. He is very cruel. He gives very hard punishments. Still, people do not have the right to rebellion. People cannot initiate revolution against him. People cannot try to uproot him of his throne. They have to, even if the king is cruel, they have to somehow obey his orders, because only God can punish the king and people have no right. You understand the basic point of this? They are trying to make king very distinguished from the people. A king is said to be very divine, and he is only answerable to God. And even if he is cruel, people still will obey his orders, because only God can punish him and other people. So indirectly they are telling people to, whatever the king does, you have to say yes sir, and you have to obey his orders. You still do not have a right to rebel. So basically it is the politics here playing in this theory, that even if the king is giving orders that are not very for the welfare of the people, they still are going to listen to him. So by these points we get to the next point, that is the criticism of this theory. The first criticism is unhistorical. The divine rights, the divinity theories, nowhere mentioned in the history. We read a lot of history. You might also be reading history, and in that history you will not find this concept of divinity anywhere. We do not find some kind of evidence in history about this theory that God actually came and he appointed. We do not find this. These are more in mystic in nature, in mythological ways. Second thing is, atheists do not accept. So they are basically trying to associate the role of king with God. But what about those people who do not believe in the existence of God? Atheists are those people who believe that there is no God. So what if somebody believes there is no God? Then how he is going to accept this theory? Because this theory is basically all around the God and divinity. And if somebody doesn't believe in the existence of God itself, then they are not going to accept this theory either. We have to care for the needs and thinking of everyone in a plural society. Now, dangerous theory. It gives absolute powers to the king, because he has been made above the law. If the king is above the law and he can do whatever he wants, even if he's cruel, people are going to listen to him. That means this theory is very dangerous. This can lead to tyranny. This can lead to dictatorship. This can lead to whatever the king can do, and it will be completely free to do for him. He will not be subjected to any kind of punishment or any kind of review. So this theory can actually turn a king into a bad king, into a tyrannical king. Fourth thing is state is a man-made institution. So later on with the development, since this theory is the oldest one, later on in the development, man came to know this thing, and this thing is established today that the state is made by man. It is not made by God. God didn't come here to make a state. State was made by man. We understood the four components. Remember those components. It was area, it was population, it was government, it was sovereignty. It had no concept of God. It was practically saying that state is actually a group of people that live in a fixed territory, that have a government, and that government is sovereign. So there is no concept of God. It says that the state is made by humans, made by men, and this is also a criticism of this theory. Number 5 is not applicable in modern times. Today, will we let this thing happen? I mean, look at the modern times. Most of the governments are democratic. The will of the people is the most important thing in today's democratic nations. Now, can we have a kind of prime minister or a president or a king that can do anything it wants without caring for the people and above the law? So this theory seems outdated in modern times. So it is not applicable in modern times because there is reason, there is science, and many things that are discovered by science goes against this theory. And the last 2 points are it is applicable to monarchy only. Well, we throughout this theory only we learned was about how king is appointed by the god and how the sons and the daughters and the children of the king are also divine and have inherited a rule, inherited to rule. They are going to rule. They have this right. But this is only talking about monarchy. Today, most 90% of the countries are democracy. We have a multiplicity. We have governments that change. There is not one person rule. There is rule of set of people, and basically the ruling power is also given by the voters. So this is against the voting powers. This theory is also against the multiple society. So this theory is only applicable to monarchy. It finds no mention in the democratic states. Now the last point is God will not appoint cruel king. So since the theory says that God appointed the king, and then even if the king is cruel, you have to listen to him, you have to obey, and you cannot disobey, you cannot try to rebel against him. But how God is going to appoint a cruel king? If God cares for people, God does every good thing for us, and when we hear the word God or write the word God, the only thing that come into our head or our mind is something that is pure, something that is good for us, something that is going to save us, something that is going to be there for us, going to listen to us, going to fulfill our wishes. Then how is it possible that God himself, who is such pure and who cares for us, is going to appoint a cruel king? That seems completely inappropriate, doesn't find some kind of connection. God and cruelty are two opposite things. So this is the last criticism of this theory, and it's a very important one, that how God is going to appoint a cruel king. You cannot appoint a cruel king if you are going to care for us. So I hope you learned something. This theory is very important. Sometimes you're asking the question papers. You may find them in previous question papers too. So I hope you learned something from this class, and you can subscribe to the channel so you will not miss any future classes. So thank you, and see you in the next class. Thank you.